You probably picture the womb as a quiet, dark waiting room, a place where your baby just floats, grows, waits for the real show to start on the outside. You'd be wrong. And once you see what's actually happening in there, you'll never think about those 9 months the same way again. Here's the promise. What your baby is doing inside you right now costs nothing, takes no special equipment, and is already outperforming every prenatal stimulation gadget or Billy speaker system on the market. You don't need to buy anything. You don't need to do anything differently. It's already happening. For over 30 decades, researchers studying fetal behavior using detailed ultrasound observation have documented that babies in the womb are not passive. They yawn, they hiccup, they suck their thumbs, they even appear to practice facial expressions, including what looks like smiling and frowning months before birth. In plain terms, your baby's brain is already rehearsing the moves it will need on the outside, long before anyone's watching. If you didn't know any of this, that's not a gap in your parenting. Nobody hands you a manual for pregnancy that explains what's really going on behind the scenes. You were never shown the footage, so how could you have known? Picture this, 28 weeks along. On an ultrasound screen, a tiny hand drifts up, slow and deliberate, and presses against a tiny mouth. The thumb finds its way in. For a few seconds, your baby sucks, not because of hunger, not by accident, but because this is practice. Practice for something that will matter enormously in a few short months: feeding, self-soothing, survival. That flicker of movement on a grainy screen is not random. It's the opening move in one of the most sophisticated developmental processes on Earth, and it's unfolding right now, whether or not anyone in the room understands what they're looking at.
Here's the counterintuitive part. For a long time, the assumption was simple. Fetal movement is just noise. Twitches and kicks, random and meaningless, with the real developmental action starting after birth. But Janet DiPietro, a researcher at Johns Hopkins who spent years tracking fetal heart rate and movement patterns, found something different. The patterns of movement and rest in the womb aren't random at all. They're organized, and they show up consistently enough that they can offer clues about a baby's emerging temperament months before that baby ever opens its eyes. More movement isn't better. More organized rhythms of activity and calm are what matter. And here's the democratizing part. This has nothing to do with what you eat, what you can afford, or what classes you take. It's happening on its own schedule, in every womb. Rich or poor, quiet or chaotic. Now for the part that makes it real. In 2010, researchers led by Umberto Castiello studied a pair of twin fetuses using detailed ultrasound. What they found changed how scientists talk about the womb. By around 14 weeks, the twins weren't just bumping into each other by accident. Their movements toward their co-twin were slower, more careful, more deliberate than movements toward their own bodies or the wall of the uterus. One twin would reach out, pause, adjust, make contact, gently, almost tenderly, near the other's face. This wasn't reflex. This was something that looked unmistakably like an early form of social behavior. Two beings, not yet born, already adjusting their movements based on who or what was on the other end. Sit with that for a second. Before your baby has met you, before the first cry, the first breath, the first time you counted fingers and toes, something in there is already practicing connection, already learning the difference between me and another. This isn't about pressure to somehow unlock this process or make it happen faster. You can't, and you don't need to. This isn't about doing more. It's about understanding that so much is already being built quietly, without any help required from the outside at all.
So if all this is happening on its own, what's actually left for you to do? 3 things, none of which cost money, none of which require an app. First, talk and sing to your baby, especially in the 3rd trimester. By around 25 to 28 weeks, your baby's hearing is functional enough to pick up the rhythm and tone of your voice through the muscle and fluid around them. You don't need a script. Something as simple as narrating your day works. Okay, we're making dinner now, and it smells like garlic. The content doesn't matter. The familiarity of your voice does. Second, pay attention to your own stress and rest patterns, not to control every emotion perfectly, but to build in real pockets of calm. A few minutes of slow breathing, a short walk, sitting quietly with a cup of tea. These small moments of steadiness ripple through to your baby's environment. You could try saying out loud, "Okay, 5 minutes, just us, just breathing," and actually taking them. Third, notice your baby's active and quiet periods and gently work with them instead of against them. If you feel a burst of movement in the evening, that's not your baby being difficult, that's a rhythm. You might just say quietly, "There you are," and let that be enough. If you're reading this thinking you haven't done any of these things consistently, that's completely normal. Nobody does this perfectly, and there's no missed window here. This isn't a program with a start date you can fall behind on. And this is exactly where it's worth comparing this to the market. There are belly-worn speaker systems, prenatal learning playlists, specialized headsets, all promising to boost your baby's brain before birth. None of them can do what your own ordinary voice already does because your baby isn't wired to respond to generic stimulation. Babies in the womb respond to familiarity, and nothing is more familiar than the person whose heartbeat they've been living inside of for months. The gadget is trying to manufacture something you already have for free. So no, you don't need the belly speaker. You don't need the subscription app promising to boost fetal brain development. What you need is already built in. Your voice, your presence, your ordinary days. And it's already doing more than any product on a shelf ever could. The fact that you're here, watching a video about what's happening inside the womb before your baby's even born, already tells you something about the kind of parent you're going to be. Curious, paying attention, wanting to understand, not just get through it. Here's the one sentence to keep. Your baby isn't just growing in there. They're already practicing, already listening, already reaching toward connection, long before the world meets them. If this kind of thing fascinates you, the quiet, remarkable things happening in early development that nobody tells you about, stick around. There's a lot more of this ahead. What's really going on behind those first smiles? How attachment actually forms in the early months? What toddlers' brains are doing when they seem to be just playing? And if this shifted how you think about pregnancy, even a little, consider sharing it. Not for the channel, for the next parent scrolling past who has no idea their baby is already doing all of this right now without any manual at all. Nothing is happening by accident in there. Nothing needs to be bought to make it better. Your baby is already practicing for the life ahead, and so, in your own way, are you.